Hello, everyone. I am Ana Gomez, and I'm here to welcome you to the first Global Child EMDR Congress. We are incredibly excited to be part of this historic moment. It's truly a historic moment. This is the first time that EMDR, child and youth clinicians, are joining together globally, united, sharing our experiences and sharing our collective wisdom. We want to honor our past, and we want to also honor the people that built the foundation for the practice of EMDR therapy with children and youth as well. And we also want to enrich our present, and we want to together co-construct a new future of EMDR therapy as we grow together in clinical practice and research. The EMDR Global Alliance was created as a response to a global pandemic, but soon all of us realized that we had a larger mission that was greater than ourselves. And so we decided to stay together and unite forces. We have trainers, leaders, clinicians, and consultants from around the globe. And we want to be advocates, and we want to be the voice of children in the EMDR community. We want to be your voice, the voice of the EMDR child and youth clinician. And here I am lighting the candle, the torch that will continue to bring us together. We owe this wonderful idea of the torch and the light to Renee Beer. Thanks, Renee. And we'll be passing the light and the torch to each of our presenters and each of our panelists. And so you will have the light yourself that you will carry. And when you look at it, put it in a special place. When you look at it, remember that we're all in this together. So welcome to our first Global Child EMDR Congress. Welcome to this new adventure together. Welcome to this, this remarkable journey that we have embarked as we decided to become child helpers. The Global Child EMDR Alliance was established initially in response to the COVID pandemic. And so we are a collective of EMDR therapists, consultants, trainers, as I said before, from around the globe. Our main mission is to support children, to support adolescents, to support parents, and most importantly, to support the EMDR child and youth clinicians and provide resources during times of crisis. Our mission is to be able to unify forces, and so support the EMDR clinicians in the use of EMDR therapy with children and youth. In March 15, 2020, we had our very first meeting. We had multiple leaders from around the globe present during that meeting. And from that moment, we had so many different moments, so many different adventures together. We have created a number of resources, and we had people from North, Central, and South America, from Europe, from Asia, from Australia, from Africa. We are now a nonprofit organization that exists legally here in the United States. We're all volunteers, as well as our presenters in our Congress. They're all volunteers, all of us working together to help our youth and our children. We have multiple task forces, and each of these task forces have developed books, songs, free webinars, forums, social media presence that provide support to our children, to our adolescents, and to our families. And you can find all of these resources in our website, www.globalchildemdralliance.com. And so we invite you to go to the website, and we also invite you to access the links to these resources in our Congress site. So to begin, we must acknowledge and express our gratitude to Francine Shapiro. We would like to express gratitude to the pioneers of EMDR therapy, the ones that put the very first bricks and created the foundation for the rest of us to follow. We stand on their shoulders now, continuing to build the legacy that Francine Shapiro left of EMDR therapy and continue to bring healing around the world. This legacy began, of course, with Dr. Francine Shapiro, who gave us the gift of EMDR therapy. And I have to say, all of us and I have learned from her brilliant and inquisitive mind. And we learn from her tireless and courageous spirit that moved EMDR forward, along with the support and the help of a strong community. So thanks, dear Francine, wherever you are, for the work and the legacy that you have left us. There are many others who worked to move EMDR forward, especially EMDR with children and youth. And I have for you today special messages from some of the pioneers of EMDR child psychotherapy. And we have to start with the clinician that did EMDR therapy with a child for the very, very first time, Robbie Dunton. Some people say Francine was the brain and the soul of EMDR therapy, and Robbie Dunton, the heart of EMDR therapy. Robbie Dunton has dedicated a big part of her life to moving EMDR therapy forward. She worked alongside Francine and was an incredible, faithful, and consistent companion to Francine Shapiro. Robbie Dunton, a wonderful, a great, a kind force behind the scenes, providing always support and guidance and giving us her wisdom. And the truth of the matter is that many of us would not be doing what we do if it wasn't because of her constant and dedicated support. So let's take a listen to her message.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robbie Dunton, and I am the director of the EMDR Institute in California. I am deeply honored to be here with you today, and I want to thank Ana Gomez for inviting me to talk to you about how I became the first person to use EMDR with children. It has been my dream to bring together EMDR clinicians who share the passion and joy for interacting with children and adolescents to help them overcome trauma and become happy individuals. I want to express my appreciation for you, as you are the courageous individuals who took the leap of faith to embrace EMDR therapy. Without your support and belief in the process, EMDR therapy would not have credibility and acceptance. It is gratifying to know that the EMDR Global Child Alliance is bringing together talented clinicians such as yourself from around the globe to make EMDR therapy available to young people. It is especially important in this time of COVID when so many children have been traumatized by the effects of being isolated from friends and extended family and unable to attend school, coping with online learning, unable to participate in sports and other activities, and exposed to more family discourse and violence. Thank you for doing what you do. Francine and I shared a long history that was not only professional, but intensely personal. We were business partners and devoted friends. We shared the same values and wanted to make a difference in the world. We met about 37 years ago when I was the associate director of a learning institute, which provided services for adults and children. And often the children had highly dysregulated behavior in school and at home. I invited Francine to come to our clinic because she had taught a course on communication skills, and I wanted her to meet with our parents and help them be able to communicate more effectively with their children. Soon after, Francine and I became very close friends, often meeting for dinner and taking walks on the beach or in the famous park where she discovered EMD as it was known then. So let me tell you how I was introduced to EMDR by Francine. We were having dinner one night when she leaned across the table and asked, "Has anything bothered you this week?" Because I was taken back by such a question, I sort of hesitated. And then she said, "Do you have any past traumas that bother you?" Well, this triggered a memory of when I was approximately 4 to 5 years old. And in 1944, children then were routinely taken to the hospital and had their tonsils out. And at the time, I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was promised ice cream and milkshakes after the surgery. However, no one had prepared me for staying in a hospital or what would happen during the surgery. The trauma started when the ether mask was put over my mouth and nose, and I felt like I was suffocating and dying. Then after the surgery, I was put in a ward with many other children. I had never spent the night away from my family ever before. Not only was I terrified, I was extremely angry. As a result, I just developed an uncomfortable reaction to being in a hospital and distrust of the medical profession. As I was focusing on the memory, Francine began to move her fingers from side to side in front of my eyes, asking me to just notice what I was feeling, what picture I was getting, what I was feeling in my body. And as I moved my eyes, I began to cry, feeling terribly desperate, alone, and helpless. Pretty soon, though, as she did more eye movements with me, the crying subsided and my emotions changed to anger. A few more sets of eye movements and my anger changed to relief. And a new thought surfaced. I realized that the incident is over and in the past, and everyone was trying to help me. Francine beamed and I became relaxed and had an overall good feeling. Eventually, Francine taught me EMDR and asked me to try it with some of my clients. So let me share with you a couple of stories, which I think is the best way for me to tell you how I became convinced of the power of EMDR. A school psychologist had referred 12-year-old John to me because his behavior was so unruly and uncontrollable. He scored high on intelligence tests, however, he was failing all subjects. He often had fights on the playground and challenged teachers verbally and physically. So in the history, when I took the history with the mother, she mentioned that John was fearful of being on a boat and would become angry if she asked him to help her with her job because she cleaned the interiors of boats. When I asked John what he thought about going on a boat, he scowled and he said he hated boats. After a few sets of eye movements, he began to cry and shake uncontrollably. Although he was unable to access an image, he said he was a very bad person. With more passes of eye movements, he remembered being left alone on a boat with his mother's current boyfriend. At the time, he was only 4 to 5 years old and cried because he missed his mom. The boyfriend, wielding a gun, told John he was a very bad boy, and if he didn't stop crying immediately, he would kill him. With more sets of eye movements, John remembered the boyfriend pushing him down and holding the gun to his head. As he reprocessed the memory, he became calm and remarked how he was really brave, and he was so relieved the man was no longer in the mother's life. Moreover, he was not afraid of boats at all, and he wanted to help his mom. After that, the school psychologist reported he became a model student and won Student of the Month award. Another child was Olivia. She was 10 years old when her mom brought her to my office in hopes of helping her to achieve academically in school. At first, Olivia seemed developmentally challenged and unable to pay attention for more than a few minutes. She drooled constantly and her eyes were unable to focus either near point or far point. Behaviorally, she was complacent and had very low self-esteem. Her special education teacher revealed Olivia consistently had accidents where she soiled her clothes and had to be changed almost every day. I asked her about having to make changes to her outfit at school. She confirmed this was the case and accepted the situation. As we did our EMDR, Olivia was able to access an image of the last time she had an accident at school, and feeling so embarrassed when the teacher shamed her by telling the entire class. Olivia said she was dumb and would always be stupid. I asked her to bring up the memory, the thought she was dumb and stupid, and where she felt the embarrassment in her body. She drew a simple figure with a red dot in the center, telling me she felt sadness in her heart. She extended her arms out as far as she could reach to indicate very sad. Remarkably, I discovered she was able to move her eyes back and forth by clicking my fingers on each side of her head. As she reprocessed the scene at school, Olivia remembered having a babysitter telling her there was a man looking in her window. And if she got out of bed, the man would come in her bedroom and hurt her. She became terrified to get up for any reason, even to go to the bathroom. After several sets of eye movements, she smiled and said the man was no longer in her window. And not only did Olivia then stop having accidents at home and school, she demonstrated a higher cognitive functioning ability. The teacher was so impressed with her changes, she said she's unrecognizable, and she recommended Olivia be moved to a regular classroom. After seeing how EMDR transformed the behaviors and self-esteem of my clients, I could hardly contain my enthusiasm for this life-changing therapy. I was eager to be involved in whatever way possible to assist Francine to realize her vision. In 1990, Dr. A.J. Popke and I volunteered to help Francine set up the EMDR Institute. I can say my years with Francine, my dear friend, and the EMDR Institute have been beyond fulfilling and rewarding. In closing, I want to thank you again for your role in continuing the legacy of Dr. Shapiro's inspiring work and in supporting her mission to heal as many people as possible throughout the world. Please continue to tell your dynamic stories of how EMDR therapy has impacted treatment and changed the lives of your clients. EMDR therapy and its development became Francine's child that she nurtured and supported with the help of devoted people such as yourself. As the familiar saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Thank you all for being an important part of the EMDR village. Enjoy the Congress.
Thanks, Robbie. This is absolutely beautiful. So now let's listen to another pioneer, Dr. Bob Tinker, and Dr. Sandra Wilson, who's not with us now. Dr. Tinker wrote the book Through the Eyes of a Child, probably a book that most of us read and was one of the very first books that we read. Dr. Tinker has been a licensed psychologist in private practice for the past 45 years. And here is his message.
Hi there. I've been asked to say a few words to you about EMDR therapy. I'm Bob Tinker, and I helped introduce EMDR with children to Europe in 1996 with a lot of help from my friends. It happened because a Norwegian psychologist heard me talk about EMDR with kids at an EMDR conference and show videos of their sessions. He invited my late wife, Dr. Sandra Wilson, who also used EMDR with children, to come to Bergen, Norway, and give a training. I distinctly remember there was a child therapist from London at the training who was initially very angry that I had used child actors in the videos, she thought. I started the videos with 10-year-olds, then 8-year-olds, and then 6-year-olds. But by the time I got to videos of 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds, she had to abandon her idea that these were child actors. They were real traumatized kids reacting to EMDR and resolving their traumas. This example relates to how quick, simple, and direct the changes can be in EMDR with children. It doesn't seem credible at first. From there, we got invited to London and Paris a number of times and became child trainers for Europe and the UK. We set up a system where each country would have a lead child trainer who would be in charge of child trainings in their own country. To become a designated trainer, she or he would submit videos of their work with children of different ages and have them rated impartially. We should do the same in the US, state by state. This is one of the challenges still facing EMDR in the US. I'm here to respond to a couple of questions posed by the International Alliance. The first has to do with the benefits and challenges of using EMDR with children, adolescents, and families. I've already mentioned one benefit and one challenge. I see two other major benefits. The child who is treated with EMDR shortly after a trauma is able to get back on a normal developmental trajectory in a short period of time, nullifying the effects of trauma. Let me give you an example. I worked with a 2-year-old boy who had gotten severely bitten at a daycare center when he was a year old. Thus, he had been traumatized for half of his short life of 2 years. He regressed in his toilet training, went back to taking a bottle, was fearful with his age peers. After 2 EMDR sessions, he returned to developing normally, no longer taking the bottle. He toilet trained himself and he became outgoing again. A second benefit of working with children in EMDR is that it helps us understand the most crucial elements of effectiveness of EMDR. That is, remembering the trauma and pairing it with bilateral stimulation. With very young children, it's not about taxing working memory, it's about accessing a memory and pairing it with bilateral stimulation. A second major challenge is that a child therapist using EMDR with children has to be skilled in a number of other areas, such as working with adults who are raising the children. The child EMDR therapist may need to recognize deficiencies in parenting and use approaches to help with that. If the parents have been traumatized as children, the parents may need EMDR and may respond to EMDR as if a child. If the parents have not had secure attachment experiences, they may benefit from help with that. Family therapy may become a part of the treatment plan. Simply put, a child EMDR therapist needs to be able to work with adults, and adult-trained EMDR therapists need to be able to work with children. The challenge becomes complex very quickly. Learning can be lifelong. A second question the Alliance has raised has to do with what message can I give to EMDR clinicians who are facing their own challenges and at the same time helping children and their families through multiple global crises. Phew, I am tempted to say, become superhuman. Short of that, recognize that the world is fragile. People are fragile. Be kind to yourself, to others, and to the world. When we engaged in humanitarian projects such as the Oklahoma City bombing, or working with ethnic Albanian children in refugee camps traumatized by the war in Kosovo, and with school shootings such as in Dunblane, Scotland, and Columbine in Colorado, we had to strongly advocate that EMDR therapists who were frequently vicariously traumatized get their own therapy after they got back home. In other words, make sure you are healthy first before helping others. Know that you are employing one of the most potent forms of therapy known. We have 20 years of brain imaging documenting brain changes from EMDR. It is the only form of psychotherapy that demonstrates a proven neurobiological benefit from a single session. It helps to know that you are using the best and doing the best that can be done to treat traumatized children. Thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Bob Tinker, and thanks for everything you've done for our EMDR community. Our next guest is Dr. Greenwald. One of the first books that I remember reading. So thank you for all your contributions. And he's done incredible work when it comes to research and training. So let's take a listen to his message.
I want to tell you a story that I learned from a Pete Seeger record when I was a child. This is a story of a giant called Abby Yo-Yo. It starts out, there's this boy in a small town who's always playing his ukulele. And people find it annoying, but he just keeps on playing his ukulele. He doesn't care about the noise. His father is a practical joker. And somebody might be getting ready to saw a piece of wood, and his father takes his magic wand and goes zoop, zoop. And the sawhorse disappears and the wood falls down. Maybe somebody's just getting ready to sit down and have a nice cup of lemonade. Zoop, zoop, with his wand, the chair disappears. Well, people got pretty annoyed with father too. In this town, the parents told their children a story, sometimes at bedtime, about a giant called Abby Yo-Yo. And they said he was as tall as a tree, had ratty hair because he never combed it, green teeth because he never brushed it, and dirty nails that he never cleaned or cut. And nobody really believed this story, but it was the story the parents told. Well, people in town got so sick of this boy and his ukulele, his father and his practical jokes, that they finally said, you gotta get out of town. And they made them live on the edge of town and kind of try to stay out of the way. Well, one morning, the boy's father was still sleeping. The sun rose blood red over the hills, and a great big shadow blocked the sun, and the ground shook. And the boy looked, and he saw a giant blocking the sun. And he ran upstairs and shook his father awake, said, Pa, wake up, Abby Yo-Yo's there. And his father woke up and looked out the window and saw the giant stomping along towards the town. And the father said, wow, gotta grab my wand. If we can make him lie down, I can make him disappear. So the boy grabbed his ukulele, the father grabbed his wand, and they ran out to where Abioya was walking. When they got there, he was walking through a pasture. He grabbed a sheep, ate it. Now just then, he saw the boy and his father, and he was reaching down to grab one of them for another snack when the boy pulled out his ukulele and started playing as fast as he could and saying, Abioyo, 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 yo, 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 Abioyo, yo, 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 yo. Well, the giant had never heard a song about himself, and a sheepish grin spread out over his face. And the boy kept playing and picked up the beat a little. Abioyo, Abioyo. The giant started dancing. And the boy kept playing. Abioyo, 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 yo, 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 yo. Played a little faster. Abioyo, yo, 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 yo. Well, the boy kept on picking up the pace a little at a time. The giant kept dancing. Finally, the giant got tired and lay down. The father pulled out his magic wand, zip, zip, and Abioyo disappeared. And the people from the town all gathered around and lifted the boy and his father on their shoulders. They said, you saved us. You made Abioyo disappear. We don't care about your stupid music. We don't care about your practical jokes. You can come back to town and live with us again. And Pete Seeger tells it better, but that's the story about Abioyo. When I first learned EMDR, I was already a trauma therapist. But when I learned EMDR, one of the first things I did is recall this story. Now we have the magic wand. We just got to get the giant to lie down. And you know, so much of what we do as EMDR trained therapists, especially with children, is figure out how to get the giant to lie down, how to get the child to be ready, willing, and able to do the EMDR, because we know that if we can just get them to do it, we'll be able to wave that magic wand and really help them solve their problems. And so, in the way I understand it, a lot of the work is how do we prepare clients to get them to be motivated enough, determined enough to work towards their goals, even when the work might be difficult. How do we help them to be stable enough and safe and secure enough that they're able to concentrate on the work? How do we help them to build up their coping skills and affect tolerance and get them to be willing to do their trauma work so that we can wave that magic wand? And that's a lot of the work I've been doing for the last couple of decades. And I guess a lot of the work we've all been doing is figuring out how to get that giant to lie down. Thank you.
Ricky, thank you for a wonderful metaphor, analogy, and story. Ricky Greenwald is a true pioneer in developing EMDRs used with children and adolescents. He also developed the fairy tale model of trauma-informed treatment. So thank you so much for that wonderful story. So now we're moving into our last pioneer. There are many others, but we have invited 4 of them. The last one is Dr. Joan Lovett, who's been practicing behavioral pediatrics for many, many years. She's retired now. And probably most of us read Small Wonders, where Dr. Joan Lovett laid down the foundation of the storytelling method. So let's take a listen to her message.
Hi, I'm Joan Lovett, and I've been reflecting on how EMDR with children has evolved since 1991, when I accidentally, by accident, learned about EMDR. And after experiencing his power and healing effects, I decided to start using EMDR with the children I was treating. And I remember at the time when I took the EMDR training, Francine said, it's so easy to do with children. All you have to do is say, this is the perpetrator, and they're all better. That the channels connected with the target are so short because children are young that everything clears up right away. And of course, that was before anyone had much experience using EMDR with children. And the first time I tried the rapid approach, a child told me that he fell off the chair and said he would rather die than do that again. So over time, I learned that even though EMDR can be very fast, it really pays off to have two qualities that I'm going to talk about. And there are two really big gifts that every therapist can offer to a child or to any client. And I think those two gifts are patience and attention. And patience is really a gift for yourself and for the child and their family. And as it's also a gift for your loved ones. And what do I mean by patience? By patience, what I mean is being nice to yourself while you wait, nice to yourself on the inside while you wait. And you are going to be waiting when you're working with children. You're going to be waiting to understand what the child has experienced. You're going to be waiting to figure out what treatment approach and positive cognitions to use and what would best help the child. You're going to be waiting until the child is ready for that wonderful desensitization and reprocessing aspect of EMDR. And you're going to wait while the child and the caregivers adjust to changes so that you can recalibrate how you're going to intervene or support the new behaviors. And so being nice to yourself or being patient as you go through the whole therapy process makes the process more fun and more pleasant for you, your client, your family, and it also makes EMDR more effective. Okay, so the second quality, the second gift that you can give is attention. And paying attention is a way of being fully present and cultivating your own calm, centered self. And that's what every child needs in their therapist. And giving attention is a way of saying you're important, what you do matters, and you deserve care. What else do you have to pay attention to? Well, you have to pay attention to the details in the history. You'll discover the keys to resolving trauma by knowing the details of what happened. You have to pay attention to your own emotions because children give us a homeopathic dose of their emotional experience. And we can use that, our understanding and our experience of their emotional experience to help them. Also, pay attention to keeping good records. They'll help you figure out what's confusing. Your records will offer you ideas for research. And if your work is ever challenged, your records can help to protect you. Pay attention to the child's play and other nonverbal cues. Play is a child's healthy, intimate activity. For a child, sharing play with you is a little like sitting down with a friend and sharing a cup of tea. It's a very warm, cozy, connecting feeling. And play is the child's gift to you. So cherish it. When you're patient and you pay attention, EMDR can work its magic. So I wish all of you fun, success, and satisfaction using EMDR with children.
Well, thanks, dear Joan Lovett, and thanks for everything you've done and contributed to EMDR therapy. So here we are. These are the shoulders we are standing on. The people that laid the foundation for the work that we're doing now. And we're grateful for what they have given us. But we have work to do. See, in the last 3 decades, advances have been made in the practice of EMDR therapy with children and youth. We have a much greater recognition, and we have received the stamp of approval as an evidence-based approach by very reputable institutions. But despite this recognition, we still have work to do. See, we need to research not only if EMDR therapy is effective, which we already know it is, and we have research that proves that, but now we need to research in what ways EMDR therapy is more effective and how it is utilized and delivered with different populations. During our Congress, clinicians and researchers are going to be presenting the latest advances in research and clinical practice when it comes to the work with children. In our Congress, we have presentations that show where we are when it comes to research in EMDR, and our researchers have done an incredible job really moving EMDR forward. But as I was saying before, we have work to do. We have some panels also and discussions specifically related to the work that is necessary between clinicians and researchers, how we need a bi-directional relationship and communication between researchers and clinical practice. So that way we can more effectively and efficiently utilize the data that is emerging from research into clinical practice. We have also presentations that provide a much larger view of the practice of EMDR therapy and the integration of multiple modalities such as play therapy, sensory therapy, and more. What we see here, and Joan Lovett said it, the language of children is play. And so how can we utilize plays in its multiple formats and forms? We know from Jaak Pansett that the play system is an important one, and we know that it shapes the social brain. So how can we bring EMDR therapy to the child and make it developmentally sound and developmentally appropriate for children? We have presentations focused on that, where we can honor the developmental needs of children, and at the same time, we can honor the heart of EMDR therapy. Again, I've been posting this question: are we bringing EMDR therapy to the child, or are we bringing the child into EMDR therapy? So that it may look different. So when we bring EMDR therapy to the child, we make sure that we honor the unique qualities of the child and the child's environment. We're also going to have discussions and presentations that address the importance of working dyadically and working systemically with children. So we know now that co-regulation precedes the development of self-regulatory capacities. So every time that the child experiences the regulating forces of the parent, memory networks and internal working models are being formed and being developed and reinforced if they happen on a daily basis. So these experiences of co-regulation, these experiences that promote the internal sense of homeostasis, in turn become neural platforms that exist in the child's biology. And during times of distress, this neural platforms become physiological regulators that the child can rely on. So we are understanding how safety, and this is coming from Porges, is the most important need of our biology, the nervous system and the brain. And safety in early years of our human existence is highly connected to the relationship with caregivers and relationship with others. So can we say that children's issues and children's symptoms are just individual and should be treated individually with EMDR therapy? Or instead, we're more and more realizing that a systemic and dyadic approach where the parent becomes a partner and an active participant of the EMDR therapy process with the child. So the parent becomes a very active partner and participant, right? In addition to that, we're looking into how for many parents that hold trauma and that are passing their wounds to the next generation and to their children, then full EMDR treatment should be provided for this parent. So we're realizing the power of systemic EMDR therapy. We're realizing how we can stop intergenerational trauma, historic trauma with EMDR therapy. However, what we need to understand more closely is what are the ways that we deliver EMDR treatment to create the systemic shift in the generational change. These images are disturbing, and I wish I didn't have to show them to you. What I'm convinced is that these images really reflect the human mind that has been impacted by trauma and adversity, and the human mind that hasn't healed. This is really a reflection of what we carry inside, because see, trauma impacts the relationship that we have with everything that exists. And the most important relationship that is impacted by trauma is the relationship that we develop with ourselves. And that becomes the foundation of every other relationship. And this is what we're seeing crisis at so many different levels. So how are we, the EMDR community, how are we facing the issues that so actively involve our children? See, the delivery of EMDR treatment requires a much greater diversity and the use of probably multiple EMDR delivery formats. We don't have enough EMDR clinicians around the world that can alone face the current crisis. And as such, we must not only come together to expand our ways of practicing EMDR, but we need to also co-create new ways in which EMDR therapy can be delivered and can reach a much higher number of children. So with that in mind, let me speak about a very important article written by Dr. Louise Maxfield. See, EMDR is a very rich approach with multiple and various delivery formats. And I'm taking, as I said before, this important concept from Maxfield, and I'm adding some few elements specifically for children, okay? So let me speak briefly about high intensity treatment versus low intensity treatment. So high intensity treatment makes reference to the treatment that is comprehensive, delivered by EMDR professionals in what Maxfield calls resource rich. So this is a more comprehensive form of treatment that we provide one-on-one or a systemic approach, individual or systemic, to moderate to severe symptoms. Okay, I would add also, as I just said, that this approach to EMDR treatment may involve systemic and dyadic work with some children, and it is usually provided to children with extensive and chronic traumatization. So resourcing it may be extensive, and as a result, it involves the utilization of higher community resources. On the other hand, Maxfield speaks about low intensity treatment. And according to Maxfield, it encompasses brief treatments, EMDR group treatment that are highly manualized, and as well as self-help procedures. So these interventions may be provided through self-help techniques delivered via computer programs or books. Some of these treatments may not be even delivered by EMDR professionals, but certainly are guided by EMDR child professionals. They may be easy to use and more affordable, and this may be more practical and efficient in disaster conditions due to the number of children that are affected. Now, do all children need comprehensive, resource-rich, high-intensity treatment? Or do we have children that can highly benefit, let's say, from group work? Now, many of us are very comfortable practicing EMDR therapy in the ways that we always have done it. But what is happening around the world is really calling us for a shift and a change where we can reach a much higher number of children, and we can utilize a diverse delivery formats for EMDR therapy. And what we're speaking here really is about a continuum of care from an EMDR perspective. And so, see, there are multiple options and approaches to EMDR therapy that utilize a wider perspective, allowing us to potentially reach, as I said before, more children, and also to reach their parents. I want to mention here a study, and I maybe mentioned in some of our presentations during this Congress. In this study, they investigated the effects of using EMDR, derived self-help interventions in children as a low-intensity treatment. And I believe they had 178 children that participated, and they were randomly assigned to receive a booklet containing EMDR derived techniques online. And the booklet had 4 stages: psychoeducation, butterfly hug, resource installation, and then safe place and future template. Now, the conclusion of the study is that EMDR derived self-help interventions were effective, and the parents were actually the ones reading the workbooks with these children. Okay, they did it for 20 minutes over a week period. So this is a promising study that shows that low intensity interventions may be an effective alternative for some children. And so as we look at different delivery formats for EMDR therapy, we need to really look at each client as an individual, each child as an individual, and look at the very specific needs, qualities, deficits, environment, and then really have a rich forms of delivery that can meet the needs of that child. Certainly some children with chronic traumatization and with trauma that took place during critical periods of development, children with trauma-related phobias, dissociation, or an incipient dissociative system. These are children that may need a comprehensive, resource-rich treatment. But for the ones that don't need, we can reach these children from a group, using a group perspective, for instance, or for the child that lives in a community that doesn't have access to EMDR clinicians, then are there other options such as intensives? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But what I want to bring here for you is that EMDR therapy has an important role in this historic moment. We EMDR therapists see that when the child's inner world heal and their social and their relational context provides for them what they need, then these are children that can develop a healthier sense of self. They can develop a healthier and more adaptive relationship with themselves. And as a result, they're going to have a much adaptive and healthier relationship with everything that exists. But what do we do? And hopefully some of the presentations that we have on panel discussions will contribute not only to your understanding of where we are in the practice of EMDR therapy, but will support you in brainstorming what we can do together to support children as they go through such time of change and such global crisis. So the first thing that I would suggest is to be intentional. And as we become more intentional, we are aware of the clinical landscape of the child, and we are intention in the moment-to-moment decision making in terms of how we deliver EMDR therapy, how we organize the A phases of treatment to make it effective and efficient for these children. The second is to tailor the A phases, preserving the essence and the heart of EMDR therapy, while at the same time honoring the child's unique characteristics. The one-size-fits-all approach really denies and negates the human differences and negates diversity. So again, let's bring EMDR therapy to the child, not the child to EMDR therapy. We also need to look at the child history, encompassing the relational, the racial, the ethnic, and social experiences that may have so deeply shaped not only memory systems, but the identity of the child. Let's explore the capacities, the affect tolerance, the assets, the symptoms, the deficit, the inner configuration. How is this child internally organized to meet the demands of an environment that quite often doesn't have what the child needs? And so when we tailor, we are providing a treatment that fully honors the child as an individual and honors the child and the child's social context. So the next, my next area and recommendation has to do with diversifying and expanding if we together want to support our children as they go through such changes. For instance, as we use group, individual, systemic, or intensives. For instance, there are some studies that have been done using healing camps where the child receives intensive week-long EMDR treatment. And the power of intensives is just beginning to be explored and realized. As I said before, healing camps, especially for children that live in areas where mental health services are limited. Can week-long camps provide over a period of time relief to children and families affected by trauma? There is some evidence of the effectiveness of intensives with adults. However, certainly we need to expand the research to children. There are some studies that I mentioned before that show that this week-long camps may be effective and efficient for children. And so the message that I'm providing here for you is we must really look into our ways of practicing and diversify. And so, for instance, if you have never done systemic EMDR work where you actively invite the caregiver and you invite a parent for full EMDR treatment, and you have a team also working with siblings and caregivers, maybe it's time to expand your group. If you work for an agency, maybe it's time to get training. And here in this Congress, we have presentations that specifically address the systemic use of EMDR therapy. If you're not trained in group protocols, maybe it's time to learn some of the group protocols that exist, like GTEP from Ilan Shapiro. I have been working on developing the CGTEP, the butterfly journey, specifically for the use with children, the IGTP from Harero, and there are other group protocols developed. I know there's one developed in Turkey, for instance. So is there maybe it is time for you to also learn group protocols? Or if you don't want to learn about group protocols, then create your hub where you have diversity, where you have clinicians that know how to use a systemic approach, clinicians that are trained in doing group work, clinicians that can eventually engage in intensive work. And so with that, with this, the diversifying of how we deliver EMDR treatment, maybe we can reach more children and help more children heal. In addition to that, when we work with groups, do we need to also incorporate the work with parents? Do we need to have parallel groups with parents, which is something that has not been studied as much in when it comes to research? There are a few studies that show the effectiveness of working in group with parents. So there's still work to do. We have the groundwork that many of our pioneers gave us and provided for us, but now it's up to us to support the continuous growth of EMDR therapy. And so I'm ending this opening presentation with two stories. The first one is a story of the Tamanuco tree. The Tamanuco tree, the first time that we met, March 15, 2020, as we met as the Global Child EMDR Alliance, the Tamanuco tree. I remember I introduced the Tamanuco tree as one of our advisors and teachers and masters. See, the Tamanuco tree has survived for hundreds of years in very unstable terrains. They had to deal with very strong winds and mudslides. These trees actually have survived through collaboration as they hold each other's roots, and with that, they have maximized their survival, their longevity. Not only they provide support to each other, but they exchange nutrients and come together to help the most vulnerable trees. And so let's learn from the Tamanuco tree. Our survival in this historic moment depends on our capacity and our willingness to work collaboratively. We as a community need to come together, clinicians, researchers, program developers, EMDR leaders and influencers, so we can promote change. Okay. We are already taking steps. See, the creation of the Global Child EMDR Alliance is a big step toward globalization. It is a huge step where we can share global wisdom and knowledge and experience. So we're pushing with the Global Alliance for greater support and space for training, for resource access, for participation of EMDR child and youth clinicians in our EMDR community. And so, just so you know, we are already creating change. None of us can do this alone, but together we have greater strength, share wisdom that can impact our children, our families, our communities, our societies, and with that, the future of humanity and the future of EMDR treatment. I'm going to read, before I go, something really incredible that was written by Mr. Rogers, a very wise man, that said, we live in a world in which we need to share responsibility. It's easy to say, it's not my child, not my community, not my world, not my problem. Then there are those who see the need and respond. I consider those people my heroes. And so what I'm going to say is, you are that hero. You are the therapist in the trenches. You are the researcher in the trenches, trying to support our youth and our children. And we have to remember, none of us can do this alone. And as we embrace this journey together, then we can continue to grow together. Thank you all for supporting this Congress. Thank you for being a helper for children and youth. I want to thank the Congress Organizing Committee, chaired by Renee Beer, for the huge effort to get this off the ground. It's been a lot of work, but all of us do it with incredible love and appreciation. I want to thank the presenters that have donated their time to create this Congress, to make this Congress possible. And now I'm going to pass the light and the torch to the next presenters. And at the end, remember, the light goes out to you. Remember that you are not alone and that we are all in this together. So enjoy the Congress.